How do you beat someone who is taller than you? How do you beat someone who is bigger than you? These are questions that the average martial artist thinks all the time, because time and time again, you might think you're the biggest, you might think you're the tallest, and there's someone else that's going to be way taller than you, way bigger than you, way heavier than you that comes along, and eventually everyone asks themselves this question: how do I beat this guy who is obviously much bigger than me, who's much taller than me, has more range, has more mass, has more everything? How can I beat this guy? And you'll ask your gym partners after you're done with your sparring round. You ask them, "How do I beat you, man?" Or you ask someone else that is more experienced, and you'll ask them, and they'll say, "Well, the way to beat them is just you gotta be faster. You gotta get in there more. As a shorter fighter, you really should just be going for inboxing. You should be going inside and getting close." But oftentimes, what that leads to really is someone, oftentimes the taller fighter actually wants you to go in there. As soon as you come in and you dart in, they're already throwing a kick. They're already throwing a two. They're already expecting it because they spar people who are smaller than them all the time. What you really should be doing is focusing on your tempo. On your tempo. That's something that no one discusses. Your tempo. A lot of people tell you, work on your tempo, dude. But no one actually goes over what the tempos are, and that's what I'm going to do today. That's what I'm going to show you. Because tempo is what dictates a fight. It is what people refer to when they say fight with your mind instead of fight with your body. It is what Bruce Lee talks about when he talks about his martial arts, right? When he talks about be like water, he talks about switching up his tempo, right? So before we talk about switching up tempo, let's go over the 5 tempos that there are, starting out with tempo number 4. Tempo 4 is for brawlers. It is for someone who usually waits. That's for brawlers, someone who usually waits for the other person to be done with their attack, done with their combo before they themselves go in. Right? And good examples of this can be found in all sorts of heavyweight bouts, right? Across Muay Thai, across boxing. Usually the heavier guy will be sitting there and he'll be like, you know what? I don't care because I think I'm stronger than you. So I'm going to sit here, let you wail your whole combo out on me. And then after you're done, I'm coming in and I'm wailing my combo, right? And they'll trade exchanges back and forth like that until eventually someone drops, right? And then there's tempo 3. This is for counter fighters. This is for counter fighters, right? So someone will throw a punch, and then you retreat, and then you come back in with a 2, right? Or you see a hook coming, you'll roll it, and then you hook, or uppercut, right? It's for counter fighters, people who see the punch coming, and they get out of the way, and they come back in to punch them, right? That's for counter fighters. Right? Still, they don't have to be exactly fast, but they still have to move pretty decently, right? They see the punch coming, then they move out, and then they come in. And then there's tempo number 2, which is the tempo pretty much for brawlers as well, right? And this is not when you are dodging someone's attack and then going in with your own, like tempo 3, or waiting for the person to be done, and then you start throwing your own shots like tempo number 5. No, tempo 4. Tempo number 2 is all about throwing at the same time they're throwing. At the same speed you're throwing your jab, there's a jab coming at you as well. So while you're throwing a jab, someone else is throwing a jab at you as well. So you both connect at the same time. That is tempo number 2. And that's for brawlers as well, but different types of brawlers, right? That can be found in welterweight, in middleweight, right? And then there's tempo number 1, all about speed, and that can be found in lighter categories, right? It can be found in lighter categories, where the person will just come in and they're throwing their whole exchange out and they're back out already before someone else can throw another combo back at them, before there's a chance to be countered, before there's a chance to be hit with anything. They're in and they're out instantaneously. That's tempo number 1. But then there's tempo 0. There's tempo 0, which is something super special, and it can be just like tempo number 3, where you're a counter fighter, but it's very different. It's all about mindset and the analyzation aspect of it. Right? A lot of good technical fighters, right? A lot of good kickboxers, Muay Thai practitioners, right? And a lot of good UFC fighters, they will utilize this tempo a lot. Tempo 0 is all about predicting your opponent, right? Before they even throw a punch, you have set up in a way. You can see it in their eyes. You can just tell somehow, right? Whatever it is, either you set it up, you can see it in their eyes, you just predict it somehow, right? But somehow you know that punch is coming. Somehow you know that kick is coming. And as soon as that opening is there, you're already there to take advantage of it. Before their arm even moves out, right? You're already moving, and the shot's already there. And as soon as their arm moves an inch, it's already in. The guard is already broken. As soon as there is a dot, as soon as they move their arm, your arm is already there at their chin. That's tempo 0, right? That's tempo 0. And sure, all these tempos are great. And sure, there's a lot of practitioners of these tempos that go on to find success in their various categories. But if you want to be a true martial artist, if you want to win against anybody, any size, any speed, any power, right? You want to beat someone that's taller than you, someone that's stronger than you specifically, you need to use all of these tempos, right? Because you're not going to be able to reliably predict every move, right? Sometimes you have to start stuff, like tempo number 1, right? And sometimes you can see a shot coming, and then you can move out the way, like tempo 3, right? Or it could be tempo 0, where you could know that the shot's coming before it's even there, and you're already in a position to counterattack, right? These are the different tempos, and sometimes you need to be willing to be able to take shots and then throw your own combos, right? That's what it is, and you need to switch up these tempos to beat someone that's taller than you. Because if you're fighting someone that's taller than you, and you are someone that's lighter, you're probably gonna use tempo 1, where you're trying to go in and then go back out. But what if they're tall and they're lengthy and they just are faster than you? What are you gonna do then? You can't just reliably use tempo 0 or tempo 1, right? Because if you just come in, right, sometimes the fact that you back out, sure, you're faster than them, but they're longer than you. So even if you do back out really quickly, all they have to do is take one step and they're already in, right? And not to mention, you're gonna get gassed really quickly, right? And your 3 punches count as one of their punches because they hit hard as hell. What are you gonna do? And that's when you realize you gotta switch up your frequency, you gotta switch up your tempo, right? Instead of always just fighting at tempo 1, sometimes you gotta go slower. You gotta slow down. Let them get some shots in, and then you go in, right? That's what it is. You gotta switch up your tempos all the time, because once you switch up your tempos, you're unpredictable. You're unpredictable. Instead of just always predicting them like tempo 0, because that's not always the case, you can switch to tempo 3 and become a counter fighter, right? See whatever shots that they're throwing at you and then react upon that, right? Or you can switch to a different tempo, right? Tempo 5, or tempo 4. I mean, sometimes they're faster and lengthier than you, but they're not necessarily stronger than you. Maybe they're just a tall, skinnier fighter. So maybe you just let them hit you a bunch, and then that's when you switch it into to tempo 4, right? And you start brawling with them. Switch up your tempo, switch up your pace. Don't just fight at one tempo all the time. Switch up what you're doing, and that is how you become fluid like water, like Bruce Lee says. Obviously, that quote, people spam it all the time, but a lot of people don't know what it means. It means to contract when your opponent expands, and expand when your opponent contracts. When they retreat, you attack. When they retreat, you attack. Yeah, I said it right the first time. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying, but when they retreat, you attack, and when they attack, you retreat. You need to be fluid in this way. But on top of that, you need to be able to switch from one tempo to another, and that's how you fight anybody at any category, really. Right? Screw just someone that's taller and stronger than you. You can fight anyone that is bigger than you, that's faster than you, anything. Anybody that has a bigger attribute or a better attribute than you could beat them and best them. If you have that one mentality of switching tempos, instead of fighting your own regular way all the time, how about you switch up a different tempo when it comes to a different opponent? And not just a different opponent, when it comes to a different time in the match, right? Or stop trying to go fast all the time when it's round freaking 5 of the match and you've been brawling or you've been fighting and you've been going fast for 10 minutes. You're probably tired as hell now. Maybe you need to switch to tempo 4, right? It's not even just the rounds, it's the time inside the rounds, right? The milliseconds that are in there, right? Even from combos, like a really good combo I like to do is I'll throw a shot slow. This is a slow tempo. This is just a throwaway shot, right? I just jab for no reason. And they'll see that. And in their minds, they're like, okay, this guy's operating at a slower tempo. So they loosen their guard. It's still, the hands are still up. But if you really smack them, they'll feel it. But if they were tensing up, like they knew that you're punching fast, right? Then the punch wouldn't go through. The same, at least, right? So what I'll do is I'll throw a jab slow, and then I'll come in with a cross super fast, right? One slow shot, one fast shot, right? They'll go from, they can't mentally switch from relaxed to tense that quickly, right? but you'll force them to, right? But that's kind of what I just want to talk about, guys. Switch up your tempo, and you can best anybody in the world. Doesn't matter who it is, right? You just gotta be smarter than them. That's all it is. Peace, guys.